For many, strange symptoms emerged. A fatigue no rest can cure, a longing with no origin, a feeling of wanting to leave without knowing where to go. It's as if a part of you is closing something very ancient, without fully understanding what. But this is not delusion or escape. It is spiritual decompression. The soul, as it nears the end of its incarnational cycle, begins to emit signals. And these signals don't come with fanfare. They whisper through the body, emotions, encounters and absences. This video is not just another astrological prediction. It is a subtle map for souls concluding their journey on this plane, now touching the final veils of density. You may have felt that you are living something inwardly that cannot be seen outwardly. And far from being a mistake, this is confirmation, because not everyone came to stay, some came to close with love, with clarity, with presence. The ancient soul, as it nears the end of its incarnational spiral, begins to operate at a different rhythm, a different frequency, a different silence. If you've been feeling that something is being completed within you, that the world continues, but you no longer belong in the same way, that connections have changed color, desires have dissolved, words are no longer enough, then perhaps this video is more than an explanation. Perhaps it is a confirmation. Here, we will explore together the 9 post-full moon spiritual symptoms that indicate your soul may be in its final earthly cycle. Listen with your heart, because this isn't just about knowing. It's about remembering. 1. Remembering what you never lived. You've started to remember things you never experienced. Disconnected scenes invade your thoughts, like flashes of other lives, other landscapes, other faces. Emotions arrive without reason, a longing without a face, a pain without an origin. These are memories that don't belong to your current biography, but they belong to your soul. After the last full moon, many accessed vibrational memories stored in the hidden archives of time, the Akashic records. And it's not by chance. It's because the cycle is closing, and what was left in suspension is now surfacing, not to confuse but to liberate. The soul, in its final incarnational cycle, carries an ancestral role to transform what remains trapped in the webs of time. This includes pains that aren't yours, struggles that aren't yours, loves not lived by you, but lived by other selves, by ancestors, by memories entrusted to your energy to be finally transcended. When these memories emerge, it's as if the soul is conducting its final inventory, revealing what's missing, illuminating what still weighs, embracing what needs to be dissolved. You may have cried without reason, felt guilt without cause, or experienced sudden moments of joy without logical explanation. This is because the ancient soul, nearing its end, begins to unpack layers that were dormant, like hidden files now becoming accessible. These are fragments of the whole, pieces of stories your presence is helping to close. And this is sacred. Don't fight these memories. Don't try to label or explain them. Just witness them. The soul doesn't want you to understand everything with your mind. It wants you to embrace it with your spirit, because this is the true service of the final cycle, letting light pass through you to illuminate what was never said, never healed, never completed. If you've been feeling this, you are not alone. You are remembering, but in a different way. And this is the beginning of liberation. 2. Hunger for silence. You can no longer stand the noise, not just the external noise of streets, notifications, or opinions, but the subtle noise of expectations, debates, and restless desires. What once excited you now exhausts you. There's a hunger within you. But it's not a hunger for explanations or distractions. It's a hunger for silence, deep silence, vibrational silence. A silence that isn't the absence of sound, but the presence of the invisible. After the full moon, something in you began to reject all that is noise. Empty conversations feel like interference. Crowded places drain your energy. News feels like the clamor of a world that no longer represents you. And it's not indifference, it's evolution. The soul, in its final incarnational cycle, develops such a refined sensitivity that it can only be nourished by the essential. And the essential, almost always, lies in silence. In silence, the spiritual field whispers. In silence, the guides draw near. In silence, your own soul reveals secrets drowned out by the stimuli of the matrix. Have you noticed? When everything quiets, something sacred begins to speak. Not with words, but with pulses, intuitions, insights that arise as if from another dimension, because they do. This desire for solitude and stillness isn't social withdrawal. It's vibrational realignment. The soul no longer wishes to be fed by agitation. It wants to rest in communion with the whole. And this may seem strange to those still caught in the noise. They may call you cold, distant, odd, but only you know you're approaching a temple without walls, a temple built in silence. Allow yourself to hear what can only be heard when everything else falls silent, because in that silence lies your new direction, your new truth, your new way of existing. What the world calls isolation, the soul calls coming home. Before we continue, if this message resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and comment below which of these signs you're already feeling. This helps the channel reach more souls who need this confirmation. 3. The body as a temple of transmutation. You may have felt chills without reason, tremors in your body as you fall asleep, waves of heat that come and go, or even bouts of insomnia, nausea, or an unexplainable fatigue that no medical test can account for. And yes, you considered physical causes, but deep down you knew it was something more. The body of an ancient soul at this stage becomes a temple of transmutation. And what you're experiencing now isn't illness. It's ancestral energetic liberation. The recent full moon acted as a trigger for cellular purification. It didn't just activate the collective unconscious, it silently deprogrammed vibrational layers dormant in your subtle field. That's why your body is speaking, not with words but with symptoms, not with diagnoses but with signs. Your flesh has begun to release what was never its own. Inherited vibrational memories, accumulated emotional densities, invisible contracts carried across generations. Does your heart race without reason? Does your skin tingle at night? Does your stomach feel closed off without apparent cause? This is your field vibrating. This is your body preparing to operate on a new plane. The soul in its final cycle begins to guide the body, not as a shelter, but as a bridge between dimensions. And for that, it must be cleansed. Every spasm, every sudden fever, every sleepless night may be signaling a silent alignment between your earthly body and your spiritual matrix. It's as if your organism received a new map and is now adjusting to a frequency your brain can't yet translate, but your soul understands. It recognizes this vibration because it's been through this before, in other lives, other planes, other passages. Trust your body, even when it feels strange. It isn't breaking, it's letting go of what no longer serves, what was trapped, what was stored for eons without resolution. And now, finally, the soul can breathe within the skin. You are not sick, you are cleansing. 4. Dissolving old identities. Suddenly, everything that once defined you begins to lose meaning. Titles, professions, old passions, even relationships or deeply rooted certainties seem to slip through your hands as if they no longer fit in the new space being born within you. What once moved you no longer does. What once thrilled you now only echoes in the distance. This sense of emptiness, often frightening, isn't a collapse, it's a passage. The soul, on the verge of completing its final cycle on this plane, stops identifying with the masks and roles it wore for millennia. This process is silent, almost imperceptible to outside eyes, but within you, everything shifts. You observe yourself letting go of beliefs that were anchors, ideas that no longer offer shelter, even dreams that once seemed like destiny and now are mere mist. The sense of strangeness comes because the soul is dismantling the theatre. The characters bid farewell to the stage because the truth no longer needs a set or script. You may feel you no longer know who you are, that you've lost references, that you no longer fit in groups, labels, or social roles. It might seem like disengagement, but it's freedom. Freedom from imposed narratives, family mandates, the logic of the past. The ancient soul, in its final cycle, begins to experience a rare kind of emptiness, not the emptiness of loss, but the emptiness of preparation, like a field plowed, awaiting the seed, like the deep silence that precedes the song. This disidentification is necessary for you to be filled with the purest presence of your essence. When labels fall away, space opens for what is true. What the ego calls nothing, the soul calls origin. Allow yourself this emptiness. It's not the end of the road, but the portal to what is real. In the silence of labels, your deepest truth begins to breathe. 5. A sense of closure. There's an inner feeling that something is ending, even if everything around you seems the same. It's not a desire to depart from life, but to leave behind the densities of the physical world. It's as if your soul is gradually withdrawing from the heavier layers of earthly experience, gathering your energies, your affections, even your urgencies. You may feel an inner detachment, a gentle disconnection, as if you've already seen all you needed to see, experienced all you needed to experience, and now rest in the interval between cycles. Your gaze upon daily life becomes more contemplative, less attached. Small tasks that once carried supreme importance now seem transient. Relationships, once fundamental to your identity, now become delicate bridges between the here and a silent beyond. This isn't a lack of love or joy in living, but a deep maturation, an almost ritualistic preparation for a subtle transition, like a flower blooming at dusk, knowing its fragrance lingers even after its farewell. In this state, you still feel, love, work, dream, but something within has already begun to walk elsewhere. You realize you're living a silent goodbye, not to the world, but to what the world means. It's a deprogramming of density, a loving dissolution of the invisible contracts that kept you tied to routines and repetitions. At times, an inexplicable nostalgia may arise, as if your soul longs for a place it never knew but always wanted to return to. This longing isn't for people or times, but for lighter, purer states of being, where the soul recognizes itself without intermediaries. Allow yourself to live this sense of departure without fear. It's not an escape, it's a flight. Not an abandonment, it's a crossing. The soul, at the end of its earthly cycle, understands that all it needed to learn has been lived. And now, in peace, it bids farewell without noise, carrying only the wisdom of one who deeply loved what it came to experience. 6. Synchronistic flow. You've started to notice that, after the last full moon, the universe's answers seem to arrive before your questions even form. A repeating number that follows you, a phrase that appears just as a silent thought crosses your mind, a recurring symbol that seems to trail you through streets and screens. Everything around you echoes a mysterious pattern, as if reality has become a living oracle, pulsing with personalized signs for your soul. This phenomenon is more than coincidence. It's direct vibrational communication. The soul, in its final earthly cycle, stops seeking external signs as it begins to vibrate the very meaning of synchronicities. The conversation ceases to be an anxious search for answers and becomes a silent dialogue, where every event seems aligned with your innermost frequency. It's no longer the universe teaching you through riddles. It's the universe mirroring your awakened consciousness. You notice that with every gesture or decision, a confirmation arrives almost instantly. Time compresses, doubts dissolve, and answers emerge effortlessly. This happens because the veil between the visible and invisible worlds is thinner than ever, and your soul has learned to decipher the hidden languages. What was once a sign to be sought is now a vibration that simply inhabits you. Synchronicities at this stage cease to be rare miracles and become the new language of your existence. You understand you're no longer being guided, you're co-creating. The field responds in real time to your intention, your emotion, your silence. The universe becomes your accomplice, no longer your instructor. The answers come as echoes of your own spiritual voice. If you've noticed this intensified flow of coincidences, know this: it's not chance. It's a sign you've moved from seeking mode to mirroring mode. The mystery now walks beside you, not to be deciphered, but to be lived. 7. The return of the unresolved. Suddenly, people, memories, and old patterns have returned to your life, sometimes abruptly, sometimes subtly and unexpectedly. Pains you thought were healed resurface, family issues re-emerge, situations you believed were closed reopen emotional portals. It's as if your entire past is knocking at your door, demanding passage, claiming presence, seeking a different resolution. It can feel unsettling, even unfair, but it's not punishment. It's liberation. In the soul's final cycle, life no longer brings challenges to test or teach you. Now, it offers the opportunity to release what remains unresolved. The universe, lovingly, allows you to see what was once automatic, what was swept under the rug, silenced in the rush of days, or tucked away in the drawers of denial. The return of these characters' pains and stories isn't to make you regress, but to give you the final chance to close vibrational contracts with full awareness. At this stage, your soul no longer seeks revenge, validation, recognition, or justice. It seeks peace, a deep peace that's only possible when you face the unresolved with compassion, without judgment or resistance. Forgiveness is no longer a moral exercise, but an energetic liberation. Cycles close because your presence is mature enough to embrace all that was forgotten, repressed, or misunderstood. When old patterns resurface, don't fight them. Just observe and release. The return of the unresolved is the final call for karmic cleansing, the last invitation to lighten your baggage before crossing the portal to other planes. If people from the past return, if old pains reappear, receive them with the serenity of someone who no longer needs to prove anything, just to close, just to transmute. This is one of the clearest symptoms of the final cycle. The soul feels there's no more fight, only liberation. And the more you surrender to this flow of closure, the freer you become to live the new, without residue, without chains, without vibrational debt. 8. Guided by the inner voice. Suddenly, what guides you no longer comes from the mind or old emotions, but from a silent, deep space where intuition pulses as pure truth. You realize there's an unmistakable frequency within you, a voice that doesn't argue, doesn't rush, doesn't seek to convince. It simply exists, still and serene, guiding your steps without noise. This state is called, in esoteric traditions, the witness consciousness, the ability to observe everything without identifying with anything, allowing life to flow through you without the need for control. The soul, in its final incarnational cycle, no longer relies on the certainties of the intellect or the fluctuations of emotions. It begins to move through subtle commands that arise as flashes or energetic pulses, a direct, instantaneous knowing without logical explanation. You start trusting perceptions that aren't thoughts or feelings. They are deep guidance coming from the center of your being, not the chaos of the surface. At this stage, the search for external truth dissolves. There's no longer much interest in opinions, manuals, or methods. You don't seek gurus or validation. The source has opened within. This inner voice, so soft, yet so unyielding in its precision, begins to guide your choices. It's what makes you leave places without apparent reason, approach people at the right moment, stay silent when others shout, or speak when the world falls quiet. Being guided by this consciousness is to feel whole. It's to live in a state of trust, even in the face of the unknown. You become more observer than protagonist, more channel than character. Everything begins to be carried out by a force that inhabits you and doesn't ask permission. It simply manifests at the exact time, in the exact way. It's the soul taking the helm, dissolving the old ties of doubt. Allow yourself to listen without haste to this inner frequency. It is your compass. The less you try to control, the stronger it speaks. And the more you surrender to the witness, the lighter your crossing becomes. 9. Love for the ephemeral. You've started to feel moved by small things. A fleeting smile, a leaf swaying in the wind, a childhood scent that appears out of nowhere. The ephemeral, once ignored in the rush of days, now reveals itself as sacred. Everything that passes, that slips through your fingers, gains a new depth. And it's not melancholy. It's a quiet love for impermanence, for the moment that dissolves in the very miracle of having existed. At this stage, your soul no longer wishes to possess, hold, or control. Attachment loses meaning because the truth of eternity begins to shine in every small goodbye. The taste of a shared coffee, the last glance before a door closes, even the pains. Everything becomes a rare opportunity for presence, for communion, for learning. There's no longer room for the fear of loss, because the matured soul recognizes that all that is true remains, even when it changes form. This love for impermanence makes you lighter. You let go of what is no longer yours, release people to their own paths, accept the natural cycle of encounters and farewells. Relationships become purer because they're no longer based on need or dependency, but on freedom. You love without wanting to possess, celebrate without wanting to retain, observe without wanting to interfere. The ephemeral becomes your silent teacher. If you've been moved by the simplicity of a moment, if you've silently thanked something you're not sure you'll have again, if you've felt peace in the face of an ending, it's because your soul has recognized eternity in the fleeting. Vibrational awakening happens when you accept that life is a river. It never returns the same, but it always renews what it touches. Allow yourself to be touched by the brief. Impermanence is not a threat, it's a promise. Love, when it doesn't cling, heals. The moment, when accepted, expands, and the soul, when it learns to say goodbye without pain, is already prepared to live the infinite. If at any point in this video your soul felt a call, a deep identification with each symptom described, you may be living the farewell of a cycle, not of life, but of the old way of existing. This is not an end like the ones the ego fears, but the silent beginning of your true return. What seemed like a goodbye is, in truth, your arrival at a state of consciousness where the seeker dissolves, the channel expands, and the light itself reveals itself as your essential identity. The post-full moon didn't just bring revelations, it brought an activation of inner portals. Silence, detachment, ancient memories, synchronicities, physical symptoms, nameless longing. All these are codes of closure, like a vibrational rite of passage. The ancient soul, as it completes its spiral in matter, stops wanting to understand with the mind and begins to rest in the subtle witness of the spirit. You feel, more and more, that the true meaning of the journey was never in titles, achievements, or conquests, but in surrender, detachment, and invisible communion with the whole. It's possible that through these words, you've recognized yourself in the mirror of the final cycle, someone who walks among the crowd but already feels in another frequency, someone who loves deeply but no longer needs to hold on, someone who lives each farewell not as loss but as expansion. This is the most sacred moment of your existence, the moment when everything becomes one. Past, present, future, all converge in the silent light of acceptance. The post-full moon journey is the crossing to a new state of presence, and if this touched you, it's because the portal has already opened within you. Don't fear the end, for it only exists for eyes that haven't yet learned to see the beginning. You are leaving, but you are also arriving. The soul returns whole to its point of origin, and that return is pure light. If this message resonated with your soul, leave the number 999 in the comments and share it with someone who is also feeling this but doesn't yet know how to name it.